Hey everyone, Choxy here. Like I promised, I'm going to be doing a build guide on my Necromancer. I did promise I was going to do it at the end of the week, and it is the end of the week, so here it is. I'm going to be going over everything from my gear, my runes, sigils, traits, and utilities, and at the end of the video, I will be going over some of the pros and cons about the build and maybe like a nice conclusion. So I hope you guys enjoy, and yeah. Alright guys, first is going to be my armor. So my armor, I mean besides the skins and everything, is going to be all rabid. I have a ascended chest piece and legs just because I was bored one day and I decided to make them ascended. But I put vitality fusions in them just to have a little bit more HP, and I got another 100 HP off them. So they are rabid. My rune set is perplexity. Yes, it's perplexity runes. Everyone hates them, but I keep using them. I say this a lot on my stream. The reason why I use perplexity is because in the beginning, when perplexity was just released, people didn't know Necro only had one skill that was viable to proc perplexity, and that was Warhorn 4, which is Will of Doom. Now with the recent patch, oh, not the recent patch, but maybe like a few months back, Fear now procs it Interrupt, so now they are just out of the water, pretty damn strong, borderline OP. Just because you have a instacast Fear with your Doom on your Death Shroud, and you have your Staff 5, which can proc that as well. So that's why, you know, people might hate them at this point, but still, I'm going to be using them just because of the fact that I made them when they were released. I specifically said, oh, now we get confusion. It's another condition for me to use, and I'm going to take advantage of that. So that is why I use perplexity runes. Okay, next up are my weapons. So my weapons are going to be Staff, Scepter, and Warhorn, all dire, yes. My Staff is Ascended, my Scepter is Ascended, and my Warhorn is still exotic. Honestly, you know, you don't need to really go for Ascended like I always say, because look at the stat difference. Scepter has 67, 67, 94. Warhorn has 64, 64, and 90. It's very minimal difference. But that extra infusion might help as well. Anyways, my sigils on my staff are going to be corruption sigils because, you know, who doesn't like stacks? And a geomancy sigil on the other slot. And as for my scepter, geomancy, and my warhorn is going to be torment. Okay, so let's go back. Geomancy sigils are almost in a sense required for any kind of Conde build because that AoE bleed is very much useful. 3 stacks of bleed for 9 seconds, not 10 seconds, and with food, you know, it goes up to maybe, can go up to 15. Depends on what food you have and what traits you have. But geomancy sigils are very strong. If you can keep in close range, you know, pop, swap, weapon swap, that's 3 stacks of bleed on them. And I have a torment sigil on my warhorn. Why do I have a torment sigil on my warhorn, you ask? Okay, this is why. First off, we do have torment natively, which is our, you know, Death Shroud 5, Tainted Shackles, and that does 3 stacks of torment. People might say, oh, you already have torment, why do you need more torment? Because when that skill is on cooldown, or when I don't have access to torment, this sigil will help me, 1, keep the Conde pressure up, 2, it'll pretty much be a covered Conde. Basically, let's say you have a, you know, stacks of bleed, burning, and weakness on someone, and they're gonna use a Conde cleanse. The torment will help supplement basically the threshold of what they're going to be cleansing. So they'll probably cleanse the. I mean, there is a hierarchy. I have not looked into this, but there is a hierarchy according to what Condes are cleansed. I need to do some research on this because I think it's very useful if I did, but that'll be on a later video. But anyways, what I was trying to say is that people will probably cleanse the torment before the really good Conde, like the really strong Condes. So that's why I use torment, and it adds a little bit of extra damage as well. So that is why I use those weapons and sigils. Alright, so overall, why this set? Why am I using rabid armor, dire weapons, and rabid dire trinkets? Okay, so as for me, I don't run full dire because that is considered very cheesy, because the fact that we can just tank everything and send Condes out is pretty damn annoying, especially on a Necro because vitality scales with life force. But why I use this mixture is because I need the precision. The precision is really very nice. I should have 30%. Yeah, there it goes. Yeah, 30%. Precision is gonna help because it helps proc my on crit things like my sigil and my trait, which I'll go into deep later, like Barb Precision. The crits actually do help at times too, not just to proc my sigils, but for damage wise as well. With a decent Candied enemy, my Feast of Corruption can hit up to 1k, 1.5k depending on how much Candies are on them and if it crits or not. Also, you know, things like Staff 4 does quite a bit of damage base, so these things help my, you know, my physical damage if anything. And the toughness just helps. Everything is toughness because toughness on Necro is very strong. We have a high base health pool, so toughness will, hello Golem, toughness will help supplement our tankability and survivability overall. And the vitality is just there to help me scale my Death Shroud quite a bit. As you can see, my Death Shroud pool is 18,000 without any kind of buffs whatsoever. I mean, I do have 30 into sober, 6 into sober reaping, but I'll go into that later. But that is probably the main reasons why I like to run Rabid and Dire mixed. Alright. Oh, and suddenly daytime. Alright, so I'm going to be going into my trait tree, guys. First off, I'm running a 04406 build. And let's go into curses. Alright, so first off I have Bard Precision. I'm not going to go too deep into the minor traits here, just because some of them don't really do anything, but this one is very important. So Bard Precision, critical hits have a chance to cause bleeding. So this overall increases your DPS, and this is why I run a little Precision in my build so I can proc this trait. This trait is very good. I mean, it's there, more DPS, more bleeds, and it's very useful. Alright, my first major trait is going to be Weakening Shroud here. It casts Enfeeble when entering Death Shroud. What this means is that when you enter Death Shroud, it does an AoE Enfeeble around you. Enfeeble is Dagger 5, and if you didn't know, it does Bleed and Weakness. This trait actually got a little bit of a nerf. Back then, it used to be a 20-second internal cooldown, and it would do the full, you know, duration of Enfeeble. But now it got nerfed, so now it has no internal cooldown, so it pops every time you enter Death Shroud, and it only does 1 stack of Bleed and 2 seconds of Weakness. So why do I take this trait? It's a very strong trait just because Weakness is still a very underrated condition. As you can see, it has minus 50% endurance regeneration, so your opponent can't dodge as much, and it has 50% fumble. So if anyone doesn't know what fumble is, it basically means most direct attacks to you are glancing blows. They do half the damage of what they usually do, and if you get crit, it'll just do regular damage. It just technically does a regular melee blow. So all in all, you're taking less damage while you're getting hit by this. So it's very useful in fights and very useful for getting just being able to survive as whatnot. Alright, next up is Fear's Demise. Not gonna go too deep into it. It's just 20%, or not 20%, 6 seconds of Fury when you enter the Shroud. Nothing crazy to say about it. It's just useful for some precision here and there. You can pop this and exit it so you can have some crit chances on your auto attacks, but all in all, just Fury. Alright, Terror. Now this is, the bread and butter of most Kandi Necros. Terror. Fear deals damage. It deals additional damage if the target is afflicted with another condition. So, basically when you fear, you do tons of damage. Not tons, but it does a lot of damage. And overall, Terror is mostly required for most Kandi builds if you want, pure damage. Terror used to be stronger back then. I think it got maybe a 17% damage nerf. Don't call me on that. I know it's somewhere in the patch notes, but it's there. Terror just helps you, be a little more bursty with the Kandis, and Fear, as long as it lasts, it does a lot of damage with the Terror proc as well. So that is why I take Terror for more damage. Alright, into the Death Magic tree. First off, it's going to be Armored Shroud. You just gain toughness in Death Shroud, helps you survive and stay in Death Shroud a little bit longer. Nothing too crazy. Alright, next up is going to be my Staff Mastery. This is my first major trait in Death Magic. Staff Masteries are I just love them. I love having lower cooldowns on my skills, especially when I need them in a really bad situation. Having your fear mark up, 8 seconds sooner. 8 seconds is a big drop in cooldown, so it's gonna save your butt most of the time. Same goes for things like Putrid Mark when you gotta get rid of those Kandis off of you, and chill lanes, just more chills, and things like Mark of, actually this one's a very unique one. Look here. It has a 4.75 second cooldown on Mark of Blood now. If you look at regen, every time I proc this mark, it gives me a 7.25 seconds of regen, And if you can do the math, I actually have about 2.5 seconds extra, like overtime of regen basically. So I can actually stack regen on myself, utilizing the staff masteries. So overall, I just love staff. It's such a great tool. I'll go over them later, but that is why I take staff masteries. Alright, so next up, a little minor one. Passive life force generation from nearby deaths is increased. This is basically just getting more life force off of dying things. So things like your Shadow Fiend, as you can see here, I can summon it, I can kill it, and I get about 2k life force. So you get 20% more overall. Alright, next up is going to be my Greater Marks. That is my other staff mastery basically. So Greater Marks increases area of marks and marks become unblockable. So if anyone didn't know, marks used to actually be, here I'll show you, they actually used to be this big by default. Now they actually made it into a trait, so they are smaller. Here I'll swap it out. This is what they now look like. As you can see, there is a pretty big difference in size of my marks. So why do I take Greater Marks? Is because I like the AoE increase is definitely useful. Basically, when someone's like running away, you can actually use that little extra bit of range to actually get your mark onto them. But the biggest one too is that because your marks become unblockable. So what this means is that, let's say you have a the gear shield on NG, you have warrior block, you have guardian shelter. This just allows you to use things like your fear mark through it. They think they're safe, but they're not. So you can pierce that block, and you can proc something like perplexity. So it just helps you be a little bit more intimidating when it comes to fights. But I just love staff. Why not buff it somewhere? Alright, next up is my Soul Reaping line. I have 6 points to do this. First line, first minor trait, Gluttony, increases life force gained from skills. Basically, anything that generates life force, you get a little bit more. Not too crazy. Things like Feast of Corruption, your Locust Swarm, these things will generate more life force. I'm pretty sure, in Death Shroud, your Transfusion, or Life Transfer, sorry, gets more life force on hit. So anything that generates life force, you'll get a little bit more out of it, so it just helps out. Alright, first minor major trait is going to be Path of Midnight. Path of Midnight, like I said, kind of like how I said about my staff masteries. I like lower cooldowns, and having things like your fear on instant or lower cooldown, your Tainted Shackles on lower cooldown overall. It's just, I just love it. I just like having these things on accessible earlier, basically. So that's why I take Path of Midnight. Alright, last gasp. Next minor trait in my Soul Reaping line. Okay, so if anyone didn't know, this trait is getting changed in the next patch. I won't talk about it now. You can see it in my other video. But as of right now, it gives you Spectral Armor when you hit 50% or lower on health. So what is Spectral Armor? You get 7.25 seconds of protection, and you get life force per hit, and it also breaks stun. So this is comparable to every other class's like, oh shit, I'm dying kind of trait. So you have NG's, their auto elixir S at 25%. You have Thieves, they got Blinding Powder, I think is at 25%. What is another one? I think Alright, next up is gonna be Last Gasp. That's Last Gasp. That's the next minor trait in my Soul Reaping line. So if anyone didn't know, this trait is getting changed in the upcoming patch. I'm not going to talk about it here. You can see it in my other video. But as of right now, in this current state, you get at 50% health or lower when you get hit, you would get Spectral Armor. What is Spectral Armor? You get 7.25 seconds of protection. You get 8% life force per hit on you, and it breaks stun. So what does this mean? It's comparable to the other classes like NG that have the automatic elixir S at 25%, and I think Thieves get Blinding Powder at 25%. So they're pretty much an oh fuck skill. Fucking man. That's your oh shit I'm dying skill, and that is our version, except we have a higher threshold. This trait can save your butt so many times, it's not even funny. At 50%, like let's say you get skull cracked and like a warrior is 100 blading you, you want to look at your HP and make sure you don't want to pop your break stun just yet. You want to let something like a trait take over because you can save your on-demand break stun. But this will break stun within 50%, so it is very useful, and the protection just helps you stay in the fight a little longer when you hit 50%. So yeah. Alright, next up is Master of Terror. This trait just kind of synchronizes with terror, of course. It just makes sure your fears last longer, so more fears, more duration on your fear, the more damage, and more crowd control, and you know, things like Spectral Wall. Alright, next up, next minor trait, you do more Strength of Undeath, you do more damage while up the life force threshold. Not very useful for us, but it might be able to turn the tide of a battle when they have like, you know, when you need an extra little bit of DPS on your physical damage, but nothing too great here. Alright, the reason why I went 6 into Soul Reaping, Foot in the Grave, gain stability when you enter Death Shroud. Oh my god, I love this trait so much. So as a Necro, you don't natively get stability unless you're using Plague form or Lich form. Foot in the Grave helps you basically avoid CCs when you can see them coming. So when like a warrior jumps on you with Earthshaker, or when a guardian is about to bash you with Banish, you can just pop your Death Shroud and you stand there and take it like a man with stability. Also, if you didn't know, stability, Foot in the Grave, you can also proc it with Stomping, so it's called Shroud Stomping. I haven't mentioned this too much, but people do know about it. It basically means when you stomp someone, you can enter Death Shroud at the same time, and you get a guaranteed stomp if they don't corrupt your stability. Well, on most classes, Warrior, Ranger, Necro, anything that does a CC when they're down, you can avoid that entirely, and that is why I love Foot in the Grave. It helps me win outnumbered fights to get rid of that other target when they're down, and turn the tides of a battle. Also, popping this when you, it can also be kind of RNG as well, in the sense that in the middle of a fight, let's say you just entered Death Shroud because you want to use your fear, and maybe the opponent used a CC on you and you just totally negated it with your stability, so that's why it's so useful. Alright, next up are my skills, or my utilities. So first off is, of course, Consume Conditions. Consume Conditions is crazy good just because of the fact that it has the same base heal as an average heal. On top of that, you get a heal per condition. So if you have a lot of Condis on you, eat them up and you will heal so much. Also, it's, a Condi clear. It's one of the strongest, it's probably one of the strongest Condi clears in the game. It just totally resets a fight sometimes, and it's very, very useful. So Consume Conditions is hands down one of the strongest heals in the game. Alright, Corrupt Boon is my next utility. Corrupt Boon is one of the most staple things of the Necromancer. If anyone didn't know, back then Corrupt Boon used to convert every single boon on the opponent. Sadly, it doesn't do that anymore. Now it's only up to 5. My beef with this, though, is that let's say I corrupt a guardian with save yourselves and stand your ground. It will only corrupt pretty much everything but the stability. The stability apparently it's not high on the corruption hierarchy list. I should do more research on this too to see what what boons get corrupted on the hierarchy list, but as of right now, stability isn't that high on the list. And usually corrupt boon, I want to say your top 3 priorities to burn are stability, Aegis, Vigor if they have nothing else, and actually third will probably be a big stack of Might. You want to get rid of that Might as soon as possible because you're going to be taking a lot of damage, but those 4 are definitely the things you want to watch out for corruptions. Alright, next up is Well of Power. This well I love so much ever since it got changed. So what does it do? It converts conditions on you per pulse. So with the recent patch, it became a break stun and gives you 1 second of stability. The 1 second of stability is alright, but it can save your butt at times, especially when I know sometimes when an NG drops a crate on me, I just have stability and I just convert the burns from the turret into Aegis. But Well of Power is definitely one of my favorite utilities out there just because it became a break stun and it converts Condi. So I get more Condi clears on top of that. They're actually Condi conversions, so you turn top priorities to kind of convert are burning into Aegis, bleeds into Vigor, which is my favorite because let's say you're getting hit by like a warrior with auto attacks on their what is it, the rifle or something, anything with like a, if you're fighting a power build but they're giving you shitty condies anyways, you pop this wool, you get free Vigor off of those things. So as you know, Necros don't natively get Vigor, so that is where we can get some Vigor out of as well. But that's why I love Wellapar so much. Alright, next up is one of my staple favorite skills of all time, Spectral Walk. Spectral Walk. Create a shadowy tether and become spectral, gaining life force when struck. You may return to your initial position by using Spectral Recall. Ugh, this skill is so good. So basically, on top of the break stun, which is very useful, the swiftness helps you, navigate and be more mobile around the fight, definitely, because Necros barely get any swiftness at all. But the biggest one is the Spectral Recall. That basically means wherever you used your Spectral Walk, if you use it again within a time limit, you will return to that point. So, actually here's an example. See this cliff right here? See this cliff? You can just use Spectral Walk up here. So let's say you can, oh, I'm lagging. I'm lagging, alright. Hopefully that didn't go in mid-air. Oh, there you go. Alright, we're good. So it started up there, and now I'm back up here. This skill has so much little shenanigans you can do, as you guys can see by my Spectral Walk videos, like juking Zergs, jumping off big cliffs. I should have actually exampled that now. I'll probably show a video of it, of me jumping off big cliffs and, avoiding fall damage anyways. But Spectral Walk is so good, and I love it to death. It's one of my favorite skills of all time. Alright, next up is Plague. And what Plague does for me is it helps me win outnumbered fights, gets me out of sticky situations, and overall it's just really good. If you didn't know, Plague has 3 skills. So you have the number 1 adds bleed stacks and poison. The number 2 does a blind field and adds poison. Number 3 adds cripple, weakness, and poison. Guess what my top 3 is? Okay, so here it is. Number 3 would be my favorite, because the 3 seconds of weakness can stack on a enemy so fast and so good. That thing will stack up so high that they can't dodge out of your field. And the cripple helps them keep in your field. So overall, I think the weakness one is the strongest. The second one would be the blind, just because blinds are OP and they can't do anything most of the time while they're getting blinded. And the number 1 is just for damage if you need it. So Plague form, usually I would use it in outnumbered fights, usually to get a free stomp off of something, unless I get corrupted, but most of the time that doesn't happen. And it just helps me keep, if I have like a group of 3 on me, it'll help me keep them at a decent health rate, or with bleeds and poisons, and it helps me get my cooldowns back up while I just sit in Plague form. So it helps me get out of sticky situations, and it helps me win fights as well. Alright, I'm just going to take this a little fast with my weapon skills because everyone knows what they do. So let's go with Scepter first. So Scepter, it's your typical Condi chain: bleed, bleed, poison. Bleed, bleed, poison. This is basically your bread and butter damage when you continue, when you have everything is on cooldown. Number 2, Grasping Dead. This will help cripple. Oh, the cripple is nice. The bleeds are nice. This is one of your biggest bleed skills too. Your number 2. So you want to land this as consistently as possible to keep up the pressure. Number 3, Feast of Corruption, basically does a good amount of base damage, but you get life force when you chomp them, and for each condition you get a multiplier of life force. So let's say if they have 5 condies on them, you get 15% life force on the bite. Also, it increases damage per condition on them. So it'll help them, or actually it'll just do more damage the more condies they have. Alright, off to Warhorn. Your Oil of Doom, it's an unblockable daze. I love it. It gets rid of blockers and helps, or if you can interrupt a heal, if you're good at interrupting heals, that's there for you. Also, it helps proc Perplexity and whatnot. Also, it's AoE, so don't forget that you can do it on a group of people in the cone in front of you. Next up is Locust Swarm. Locust Swarm helps me get around, gives me the more swiftness, because like I said, you don't have a lot of swiftness. This is another source of swiftness, and it does cripple every time it hits an enemy, so it helps you, well, not necessarily kite, because the Locust Swarm has to be on top of them. It also generates life force as well, so this will help you generate life force. You can actually do something like this. You can pop your Locust Swarm and go to Death Shroud, and you can hit things while on Death Shroud, so it'll generate your life force a little better while on Death Shroud. Alright, now onto my staff skills. Everyone knows how fun and great staff is on Necro. It's almost a requirement on most Necros, even though you run power or any kind of variation, because it just brings so much utility to a fight. So first off is auto attack, Necrotic Grasp. This skill though, only downside is that it does have that weird tracking, so if an enemy can easily sidestep it, but if you do tend to land it, you do get rewarded with 4% life force per hit, and it pierces. This just helps you generate more life force in my build. Next up is Mark of Blood. I already went over the region stacking. Overall, it's just another number 2 you want to consistently land. Also, if I didn't mention, you have to be in the circle for the region to proc. If they're way over here or something, and you're not in the circle, you don't get any regen. But it's just there for the bleed stacking, so that's another damage dealer right there. Okay, you got Chillblains next. This is your kind of bread and butter kind of chill and poison. Nothing much to say about it. Chill, a very strong condition as well. Chill, just, you know, let's say in the middle of a fight they have all the cooldowns on cooldown, you use a chill, and it's like, oh crap, now I gotta wait like an extra, you know, 7 seconds instead of 4 seconds for my skill. So it can really definitely turn the tide of a battle with your chills. Putrid Mark, definitely a unique mark. This mark transfers candies to the target when they proc it. So my biggest use for this is that if I need to, oh, actually, in a sense, you should always save Putrid Mark for big, for like oh fuck reasons. Just because of the fact that if you have a lot of candies on you and you're dying, you can send them back to them with Putrid Mark. I send things like NG's burning or any kind of burning, bleeds, probably cripples too. There are some things you just really need to transfer over to them. It's also a blast finisher, but it doesn't blast unless they proc it. So let's say I put down my Chillblains. This is actually a poison field only when they proc it, and then I would blast it with my 4 only if they proc it. So as of right now, that's the only way they can blast is if they actually get procced on. Alright. So also, if you didn't know, with Putrid Mark, let's say if there's more targets in there are more candies that'll be removed. If let's say you have 6 candies on top of you, and you do this, you do number 4 on 2 people, it'll transfer all 6 of them. Alright, next up is Reaper's Mark, you know, our bread and butter fear. This is just a big utility to help be interruptive, maybe damage here and there, but it's nothing much to say about it. It's a fear mark. That is our staple and our, you know, bread and butter. Alright guys, so that is my build overall, as you can see. Some things I want to mention about my build. As for pros, you guys know I love to roam a lot, so this build actually helps you win, or not win, but it helps you stay in the fight for things like 1v2s, 1v3s, if anything, because you're innately tanky with your high health pool, and to supplement it with Rabby gear and mix of dire gear, you get that toughness to really supplement that high health pool. On top of that, the things like getting a stability on Death Shroud helps you negate a lot of CCs that are going to be coming at you. So things like stability stomps will help you get rid of those nasty targets in fights. Like in most unnumbered fights, I would go for the target that is just squishy, in the sense that they have very low like HP, and the ones that are easily stoppable. So like, you know, warriors, guardians, rangers, necros. Who else? Missing NG, things like those with the CC on down, I would go for first, because of things like Shroud Stomping and whatnot, and Plague Stomping. Also, another big pro about my build is that it does have quite a bit of Kandi Clear and Cleanse. So things like Wall of Power, Putrid Mark, Consume Conditions, it's definitely enough to hold up in most Kandi wars in a sense. Sometimes if I know if it's a Kandi-centric enemy, I will just switch to something like a Plague Signet, just to be, you know, throw it back at them. But my build does help, you know, sustain through most conditions at times if you know when to use them correctly. Some cons about my build, actually this is a con about a lot of Necros in general, which is Necromancer's inability to close the gap and to chase. So in a sense, the only thing that can really supplement that is your cripples and chills, or Spectral Walk. Let's say like if you're fighting like a kiting mesmer, sometimes you could just use Spectral Walk and they'll chase you if they really want to kill you, and if they don't know about that tether, you can just blink back to them and just jump onto them, because not gonna lie, a Necro's biggest weakness is range. we don't have a lot of range. We have a 1200 range attack, but this thing is slow and is easily strafable. So if a enemy can keep their distance away from Necro, it's a done fight. Usually I will just leave the fight because I can't do anything about that. That is why, you know, that's one of the biggest Necro weaknesses. Alright guys, so that's all I could actually explain as of right now. I will be actually doing a in-depth how to use guide, so I will go more deeper into how I use my build, some videos and whatnot on what is used when it is used, and etc. But as of right now, I just wanted to show you guys my gear build and trades because I wanted to get this before the feature patch, considering that a lot of things are going to be changed and I might have to change my build as well. So if anything guys, that is it for me. If you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to comment below. I will actually personally answer them myself because yeah, I am just here most of the time. So if anything guys, have a good one and I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, if you guys need any more help, please feel free to comment or message me or add me in game. Alright guys, but that's it for me. I am off to work actually, and you guys have a good one. Alright, peace.